I want to talk to you a little bit about the judge in Texas that is getting a lot of heat, but I personally think that what he's saying is on the very edge of the realm of possibilities of what's coming. But I do believe it is a possibility. For instance, let me clarify this. If you live in Florida, every summer you have a chance of getting hit by a hurricane. And when they start to form hurricane starts to form and it comes in, and as it's coming, they always tell you, leave town. How many times do people not leave town? New Orleans. Because that usually doesn't happen. Make sure you cover all your windows and everything else. All right. It usually doesn't happen. But that one chance that it does turn into New Orleans, you're toast. So you prepare. You do what you have to do, even though inside you're like, this is just not going to happen. Because it's catastrophic. Catastrophic if it does. So, here's the judge in Texas saying we need to prepare because there's a chance that we go into civil war with UN troops.
He is going to try to hand over the sovereignty of the United States to the UN. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's going to happen when that happens? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking worst case scenario.
Right,
okay?
I understand.
Civil unrest, civil disobedience, civil war, maybe. I mean, we're not talking just a few riots here and demonstrations. We're talking Lexington, Concord, take up arms and get rid of the guy.
Stop here for a second. Okay, what is the insane part of this premise? To me, the insane part of this premise is the President of the United States is going to hand over the sovereignty to the United Nations. I don't think that's going to happen. I can imagine a lot of scenarios. I just don't think that that's going to happen. But if the president, let's say Mitt Romney got into office, and the President of the United States tried to hand over the sovereignty of the United States of America to the United Nations, do you think we'd pick up arms against that?
Yes.
Absolutely. Would we be right to?
Yes.
Absolutely.
But it's not, again.
But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. However, on the trajectory that we are headed with the bailouts, etc., started by George W. Bush. Remember, George H.W. Bush was the first president to ever use the New World Order. With everything that is going on, did you see that we're giving money to Egypt, huge sums of money to Egypt? I'm sorry, not us, of course. We're just doing our fair share, by paying the IMF. The IMF is being hit up by Egypt for all this money. So your tax dollars are going to be laundered through the IMF and given to the radicals in Egypt. Okay, I mean, you are handing over sovereignty every day. You're handing over bits and pieces. And with the collapse and the way the IMF and the World Bank and everything else are going to bail everybody out, which we will be on the hook for, you will lose your sovereignty in the end.
And let's not forget, he did qualify this with worst case scenario.
Okay. Here's my point. This guy's words have to speak for himself, but I am much more comfortable listening to a guy who says, let's prepare for the worst case scenario. I'm much more, what is Homeland Security? Isn't that worst case scenario? What is the Pentagon? Isn't that worst case scenario? What is DEFCON 1? Isn't that worst case scenario? I mean, what did we spend all that money for the extra cabin, the escape cabin in the shuttle launch? How many shuttles did we launch? One went awry. How much money did we spend revamping that cabin so we wouldn't lose all the astronauts if it blew up again? Did anybody say, well, that's not going to happen? Well, okay, revolution, civil war has happened here in the United States. It's happened. Okay, so we know it's happened. Is it likely to happen? No. Is it likely that another space shuttle was going to blow up the same way on throttle up? Is it likely to happen? No. Why did we spend all the money doing it? Was it likely that the Soviet Union was going to pulverize us and we would have a full-scale nuclear war? No. Did we prepare for it? Yes. Well, isn't the job of the people in charge to prepare for the worst-case scenario? I ask you to prepare and have food insurance, to go and store food in your own house. Is it likely that you're going to lose your job? No. Could it happen in a worst-case scenario and you can't find a job? Yes. Has it happened before? Yes. Has it happened to me? Yes. Has it happened to you, Pat?
Yes.
Has it happened to you, Jeffy?
Yes.
Has it happened to you?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Will it happen, please?
Probably pretty soon.
Oh, it could. Could. Ask again nicely, Jeffy, and I could make it happen for Stu.
You've never been fired from a job?
Never been fired. Why? Unless, a temp job. I think I might have been not called back. But I don't think that counts, does it?
Huh.
You know what? Let's stop by my office this afternoon. Let's discuss this. Why is it crazy to prepare? Because what he's saying is a civil war would come if the president tried to give our sovereignty away. Not if he was elected, if he tried to give our sovereignty away. Yes, there would be a civil war. There should be a civil war if a president, any president, tried to give our sovereignty away. Do you remember what people were saying about George W. Bush in Texas when he went and put the Mexican drug lord up to the world court?
Yeah, we were saying impeach him.
Impeach him. That was because a guy who brutally killed a woman in Houston.
Two teenage girls.
Right. He said, you know what? I know we've tried them, and we're in Texas. They're going to execute, but the world court thinks that's inhumane. Let's let the world court decide. Excuse me? The people in Texas were like, the world court ain't deciding, Jack. The world court will not decide. We'll decide.
And they won.
And they won.
It was weird they called him that, too, because his name was George.
If the world court would have won, Texas would have been a real problem. Real problem.
Yeah.
As they should be. Now, I just said last night on television before this guy said anything, call your state representative, not the Washington clowns. Call your state representative. Call your sheriff. Call your mayor. Call a neighborhood meeting. Who's prepared? Who's prepared? Are you prepared? Is the state prepared for civil unrest? Is the state prepared for a banking holiday? They've happened already in Europe. Look at the cliff that Europe is about to hit. Just read Financial Armageddon. Just look that up. I think they're calling it Taxageddon. It is a possibility. And here it is. The president wins and decides that this is according to the CBO, by the way. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is the CBO. The president wins, and he decides he's going to let the Bush tax cuts expire, and we can't reach a budget deal. So now the budget just makes automatic cuts. You will have financial Armageddon. Okay? President doesn't get elected. The Congress does nothing in between. Financial Armageddon. Okay, what does that mean? That means that things will be significantly disrupted. If people can't eat, there will be riots in the streets, especially in our big cities, especially where it's not neighborly love. Is it unreasonable to say, what are we doing as a state? Forget the federal government. Remember, the idea is turn the federal government around. We don't need FEMA. Is it unreasonable to say we should be prepared? Do we have food storage as a state? Have we taken any money and put things away for food storage.
That's the same way they would handle an infectious disease. They would stock up vaccines when the flu might break out, and we've seen that happen several times.
Always. Why is it unreasonable to do for food? Why?
To question, though, the effectiveness of his message. In a way, I think that what he's doing it does hurt, because what you're talking about is preparing for something that has happened a lot of times. There's been periods of natural disasters, civil unrest. Those things have happened, and it's good to be prepared as a state. When you start bringing in the sort of real long-shot situations, ones that you're even saying are highly unlikely, like the UN getting control over things because President Obama just said, hey, UN, now you're president, it takes it out of the preparation message and into a political message, and I don't think that helps the preparation message.
It's not helpful to say, look, let me ask you a question. You were in Florida with me, Jeffy, during the recount of Florida. Oh, yeah. That tore Florida apart. Here's a more reasonable scenario. The count is close. And we go through exactly what we did in Florida in 2000.
Even with the hanging chads delivered by people with FUVs.
Do you really think that this country holds together on a Supreme Court decision? Let's just say Supreme Court decision gives it to Obama. Say the Supreme Court gives it to Mitt Romney. It doesn't make a difference. We have been trained to hate each other so much. We are on the edge. It's why I've been saying you've got to get out and vote. You've got to get people registered to vote. You've got to get your friends out to vote, because it can't be close. Because if it's close, I saw it. Neighbor against neighbor in Florida. The tensions were so high in Florida. We don't have the elasticity anymore in us as a nation. We can't bend that far anymore.
Yeah, and that might be an out there scenario, but what he's proposing is really out there, because he's saying UN troops on the streets of Lubbock, Texas.
Got it.
That's just not going to happen.
What difference does it make his scenario? What I'm saying is, shouldn't we all listen to the warning of trouble is in our own neighborhood? It is here. And wouldn't it make sense for our states to be prepared? What good is it to go unprepared? Look, let your state be mocked all the time. Texas was mocked for the drought thing that they did with, where they prayed for rain. Mm-hmm. Talk to any farmer. What are they doing right now? They're down on their knees. Why are these farm states not doing the same thing? Why are these farm states? Why isn't Kansas and Oklahoma? Why isn't Idaho, for the love of Pete?
And should we talk about how much it's rained in Texas and how the drought is over?
It's over. Why isn't Nebraska? Why aren't these states on their knees publicly? Be shamed. Be shamed. Let people ridicule you. Stand up and then get down on your knees and pray for rain. Who cares if people make fun of you? Who cares if people call you an extremist? Who cares? Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Maybe it's just me.
May I add a correction here before you go to break here? I was fired from Chili's. I was in the interim. I did remember.
Okay, now the truth comes out.
I did get fired from Chili's.
Stephanie Cutter. Now,
I know.
Now the Stephanie Cutter truth comes out.
Such conviction.
Yeah, he did. He said, "I've never been fired."
Well, there was a McDonald's thing that could have counted as a firing, but I actually quit beforehand. So I thought I had a line there, but no. I did definitely get fired from Chili's. So. I just look before factcheck.org gets on this, before Media Matters is all over me. I was fired from.
Is that going to change your outlook, Glenn? Because I don't think it should.
But Mitt Romney's never been to a Chili's.